The patriarch Abraham is known as the father of the world's three great monotheistic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. For centuries his faithfulness to only one God when people worshipped many deities has been regarded as a break from the society around him. However, an archaeological discovery known as the Ugaritic texts is opening a window onto a different cultural context for Abraham's story. At least different than the biblical historians first supposed anyway. In 1929, a French archaeologist found an ancient palace at Ugarit, on Syria's Mediterranean coast. The palace spread over 2 acres and stood 2 stories tall. Besides the palace, there was a large cache of clay tablets found at the site, and the writing on them and the texts found have been studied for nearly a century now. The tablets were named the Ugaritic texts because that's where they were unearthed. The Ugaritic tablets are noted for another significant reason. They are not written in a cuneiform known as Akkadian, the common language of the region from the time. Instead, these tablets were written in a 30-character type of cuneiform that has been named Ugaritic. Scholars have noted that Ugaritic resembles Hebrew, as well as the Aramaic and Phoenician languages of the region. This resemblance has led them to categorize Ugaritic as one of the precursor languages that influenced the development of Hebrew, which is an important find for tracing the history of the language. The Ugarit texts are also revolutionary for biblical history studies. Archaeologists, linguists, and biblical historians have pored over the Ugaritic texts trying to understand the world they chronicle and its possible influence on the story of Abraham. In addition to language, the Ugaritic texts show many literary elements that have made their way into the Hebrew Bible. The Ugaritic texts also contain detailed descriptions of Canaanite religion that Abraham would have encountered when he brought his extended family into the area. These beliefs would have shaped the culture that Abraham encountered. Among these details are references to a Canaanite god named El. The Ugaritic texts indicate that while other gods were worshipped, El reigned supreme over all the deities. This detail relates directly to Genesis chapters 11 through 25 that encompass Abraham's story. In the original Hebrew version of these chapters, God is referred to as El or Elohim. Scholars think the similarity of names shows that the Canaanite religion may have influenced the name used for God in Abraham's story. However, based on the ways they interact with humans, the two deities appear quite different when the Ugaritic texts are compared to Abraham's story in the Bible. One concept found in the text is the idea of a divine council and its function in maintaining order in the cosmos. Over this council sits a high god identified as El in the texts, whose divine function is to maintain order in the divine realm as well on earth. Due to Ugarit's involvement in the ancient world and the text's representation of Canaanite cosmology, scholars have argued that the Ugarit pantheon is evidenced in the Hebrew Bible, where Yahweh appears in conjunction with other divine beings. Drawing on imagery from both the Ugarit and Hebrew texts, scholars argue that Yahweh was not originally the high god of Israel, and the idea of Yahweh alone was a progression throughout the biblical record. So, is the divine council in the Hebrew scriptures an import from Ugarit? And if so, what is the function of Yahweh in these council settings? To answer these questions, we must analyze 2 key passages where Yahweh and El are seen as 2 different deities: Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 8-9 and Psalm chapter 82. One of the Ugarit people's primary gods was named El, or Elu, the father of the pantheon and patron god of kings. His symbol was that of a bull, and he is also referred to by titles such as the Kind One, God of Mercy, and the Creator of Creatures. Alongside Elu was Asherah, his wife and mother of the gods. Together, they produced several children known as the sons of El. One of Elu's children, Dagon, is particularly notable because he was a grain deity and father of the much more prominent god, Baal. At times, Baal opposed his grandparents, Elu and Asherah. One of his titles is Beneficent El the Benign. He also is in command of the pantheon. After the death of Baal by Mo, the god of death, Elu physically went down to a place on earth and performs a mourning ritual where he pours the ashes of grief upon his head. The god of the Israelite also has a heavenly court of angels that he interacts with and are often his messengers. These angels are not gods, and they are different from humans. Yahweh created these angels when he created earth. Yahweh's creation exists with a dualism in which he has an enemy we call Satan who competes with Yahweh over the souls of humans. However, Satan is only able to be active on earth because Yahweh allows it. Yahweh works through covenants, beginning with Noah and culminating with Moses. He makes it very clear to his people that he is the only God there to worship and the only one that exists. They are not to create images or idols of him because he has no form. They are to take 1 day per week where they only worship him and do no work, and many other instructions given in order to set Yahweh's people apart from the neighboring peoples. Most of the practices of surrounding cultures were to be rejected by the Israelites. In exchange, he would protect, preserve, and cause his people to prosper. Yahweh appeared in physical form numerous times, such as walking in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, talking with Abraham at the oaks of Mamre, and wrestling with Jacob. His presence often dwelt in the tabernacle and later his temple, but it seems the Hebrews knew he actually dwelt in heaven. Prayer was directed specifically and solely to him. Praying to and worshipping anything other than Yahweh was forbidden. He may or may not grant requests, but a person could ask. There are a number of commonalities between Elu and Yahweh. Both deities are in the dominant position among their respective divine groups. Elu occupies the first level of his pantheon and Yahweh is the sole god among his assembly. They have numerous similar characteristics and titles, such as being merciful and beneficence, as well as being called creator of creatures for Elu and creator for Yahweh. Because of their benevolence, they both often bless or help humans. Elu blessed David with a son and Yahweh blessed a number of people, such as Abraham, with a son. Elu helped Kurta find with a wife and Yahweh helped Isaac get a wife. While there are some similarities between Elu and Yahweh, the differences far outweigh them. First, Ugarit does not have a cosmogony, whereas Yahweh does. In Yahweh's creation account, he creates everything out of nothing. He is able to do that because he exists outside of that creation. Though there is no account, Elu appears to be a part of or within an already created universe. Elu lives within a tiered pantheon of gods. He is the king of the gods but is still on the same level as multiple other gods. Yahweh, on the other hand, cannot be called king of the gods in the same sense because he is clear that he is the only God that exists inside and outside of creation. He has a divine assembly filled with angels, biblically possibly sons of God, but they are not equal with him in the slightest. Elu is also commonly made into idols for worship. Yahweh does not allow any images to be made of him because humans cannot control him. Elu is also much more human-like than Yahweh. For example, Elu had a wife named Asherah who he had physical sexual relations with and then birthed his pantheon of gods. Yahweh did not take on a wife because no other gods existed according to him, and he did not have sexual relations with anyone or anything. Yahweh did not have physical intercourse because he is not a man in any capacity and did not need to in order to create other beings. He simply willed something to exist, and it did. After the Ugaritic god, Elu, and the Hebrew god, Yahweh, are examined more closely, the conclusion can be drawn that there are virtually no significant similarities between the two deities as described. They are similarly in titles and a few of their attributes, just like most of the other gods in the ancient Near East, but that is where the parallels stopped.
Thanks for watching this and all our videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until we meet again, stay curious, fellow travelers, and have a great day.